In today's video, I'm going to show you what's effective and what's not in Dave Ramsey's Baby Step program so you can see if it works for you. Hey everybody, I'm James Conole, founder of Root Financial, and I'm here to teach you how to get the most out of life with your money. Dave Ramsey is the biggest personal finance personality in the United States, and he has some really bold strategies for how you can change your life and you can get your finances in order. And what I want to walk through is what of that advice works and what's most effective, and what aspects of that advice could be done differently in order to make it even more effective. Now, quick disclaimer, my family found Dave Ramsey when I was a child, and it completely changed everything for us. So I have a lot of admiration and respect for the way things are done, and I've seen the power of his baby steps at work. Even so, I want to show what aspects do I think could be done even better to make this program even more effective, or to make his baby steps even more effective. Now, right off the bat, one of the best parts of Dave Ramsey's program is he breaks things down into baby steps. When people are thinking about finances and getting things in order, one of the reasons people give up or people never start in the first place is because it seems like such a daunting task. How on earth do I get all of this stuff in order? So what he does is he says, let's break it down into baby steps. Baby steps 1 through 7, so that you have a framework and a guide for how do you approach your finances on an ongoing basis. So let's walk through those baby steps to see what does he really get right and what areas could you specify or customize more to your specific situation. Step number 1 in Dave Ramsey's program is save $1,000 in an emergency fund. I am very much in alignment with this. Before you go pay down debt or invest or think about buying real estate, you have to have cash set aside. The hard part about this cash isn't going to do anything for you. It's not going to grow for you. It's not going to be exciting. But in order to effectively be a good investor or buy real estate or pay down debt in the most effective way, you have to have a cushion set aside because life will inevitably happen. There will be job loss, there will be car repairs, there will be home repairs, there will be stuff that comes up. And if you don't have that cushion there, you're gonna have to go into debt and continually go into debt in order to make ends meet. So starting with that emergency fund is kind of like building that first layer of the foundation that will allow you to do bigger and better things along the way. And it's just $1,000. So it's not saying get the full thing there, but it's saying start with something so you can move on to step number 2. Step number 2 is pay off all debt except for the mortgage. This is probably the most controversial one of Dave Ramsey's baby steps because most people look at finances like it's a math problem. They say, why on earth would I pay down debt if it's maybe at 2% or 3% or 4% interest when I could invest and maybe get 8, 9, 10% interest? So here's why Dave Ramsey says it, and here's what I think could be different. But what Dave Ramsey is talking about, and if you listen to his program, he talks about having that gazelle intensity. So think of a gazelle that's being chased by a cheetah. That gazelle is not stopping to eat some grass here and go into the watering hole to get its fill there. It's focused on one thing only, and that is escaping the cheetah that's after it. He talks about having that same intensity. Of you have to have that gazelle intensity to get out of debt so that then you can move on to living and investing and doing the other things. Now, what he gets really right about this is as humans, when we try to do too many different things, so for example, put some in savings, some in investing, some in debt pay down, we don't really make any progress in any of those directions. We're getting small steps in each direction, but it doesn't feel like a lot. It doesn't provide that sense of momentum or that sense of motivation. So what focusing really hard on one thing like paying down debt does is it gives you that momentum. When you start to see debt being paid down in a really big way, that's motivating. That's incentivizing. You want more and more and more of that feeling. So even if it doesn't make sense on paper, it gives you that natural incentive to continue doing what you're doing because motivation is an incredibly powerful force when it comes to our finances. Incentivizing the right behavior is really what this baby step 2 gets right in my opinion. Now, where would I adjust it? I would adjust a couple things. I would adjust it to say, know yourself. This is all about motivation. It's all about incentivizing what's going to motivate the right behavior. So if to you that's paying down debt, wonderful, do that. Now I should take a big step back and say it depends on what kind of debt it is. If it's credit card debt where you're paying 18, 20% or more interest, it does not make sense to invest whatsoever when you've got that type of an interest on your debt. Why would we invest to maybe get 8, 9, 10% over time when we're paying the bank a definite 18 to 20% over here? Devoting your dollars there is a no-brainer, and that is far more effective than investing and hoping to get an 8 to 10% return. But if we're looking at debt that's maybe a car loan, or a student loan or a personal loan, and you're looking at much lower rates of interest that you could definitely get in terms of growth on your investments. On paper, investments make sense, but what really matters is do what's going to incentivize good behavior. Again, the power of momentum, the power of incentivization, the power of doing things that make you want to do more of those good things. How do we motivate that good behavior? So understand yourself. Is it going to be more powerful to you to invest and see the progress there? Or is it going to be more motivating to be paying off debt and see the momentum that that creates in your life? Understand that and do what you feel is best for your situation. Dave Ramsey's baby step number 3 is to build up that emergency fund from $1,000 to 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Now, do I like this? Yeah, it's just a basic rule of thumb. Where does 3 to 6 months come from? Somewhat arbitrary. Really, what I would do is make that more specific to your situation. If you are a tenured professor, for example, and you can't get fired and you're going to stay working and maybe you even have a pension when you leave, well, your need for an emergency fund is much lower. There's not going to be a need to access the emergency fund if there's a job loss. You have steady income coming in. That emergency fund's role is to supplement income if you lose a job, or to supplement income if there's a really large expense. So have something in an emergency fund, but only maybe enough to pay for a large expense. Because if we have too much in our emergency fund, well, that cash, it's not growing for us. So it's actually going to start deteriorating our purchasing power if there's too much there, which is why you want to customize having an emergency fund that's specific to your situation. If you're not a tenured professor, maybe you're in sales of some type, maybe you're a real estate agent. Well, you could have some months that are incredible, but you might have other months where nothing is coming in. So maybe you have, well, not maybe, you probably should have a larger emergency fund because it's tailored to your specific situation. Understand what's the longest that you could go without income. And not just what's the longest that you could go without income, but what if there's expenses like car repair or home repair or a kid needs braces or whatever it might be. Make sure that your emergency fund has enough in it to replace that income and meet those expenses as needed. And that's going to look different for the real estate agent than it is for the tenured professor. So for Dave Ramsey's baby step, 3 to 6 months, it's a good place to start, but really you want to make that more specific to your custom situation. Dave Ramsey's baby step number 4 is save 15% to retirement. And people ask, do I like that? Is it a good number? Yeah, but again, it's somewhat arbitrary and it's just a general rule of thumb. The reality is this. I like to sometimes take these examples to the extreme to illustrate if there's any fault in them or anything that's missing in them. Let's assume you have a 20-year-old who's saving 15% for retirement and does it until age 65. And you have a 64-year-old who's saving 15% for retirement and will do so until 65. Which one of those individuals is going to be in a better position? Well, the 20-year-old, of course. They have 45 years of doing this, whereas a 64-year-old only has 1 year of doing it. So it goes without saying that depending on when you start and what you want your retirement expenses to look like and how much your income is and what lifestyle looks like, all of these things are going to be driving factors into what actual percentage should you be saving. So 15% is great if you need a place to start and you don't know where else to turn. Start there. But the better thing to do is to find the amount that's more specific to you, because for some people, 15% is not enough. And if all they ever did was 15%, because maybe they started late or maybe their retirement expenses are very large, they might be underfunded in retirement and run the risk of running out of money if that's all they're saving. For other people though, they might find that 15% is more than they need to save. And if they're saving 15% forever, you have to ask yourself, what's the opportunity cost? What could you have been doing with those dollars today for short-term goals or spending or lifestyle needs? Because sure, you're gonna have a wonderful retirement, but if we're doing that at the expense of today, well, then we're also missing the point. So how do you find the percentage that's right for you, for what you need to be saving to be on track with your goals? So with baby step 4, saving 15%, good place to start, but customize it to your situation. The thing that I do have an issue with is oftentimes within this context, Dave Ramsey often gives the example of growing your dollars at 12% per year. Now here's the thing, he's right and he's wrong at the same time. When he's using that example, it's not an arbitrary example. He's using that based upon the long-term average return of the S&P 500, but he's calculating it in a way that doesn't actually make any sense to you or that's not relevant to you. I'll show you an example. Let's assume you have $100. I give you $100 today, and over the next 12 months, your $100, it grows by 100%. Okay, so follow along with me. You have $100 this day, it grows to $200 next year. Well, then the 12 months after that, it loses 50% of its value. Okay, so we go from 100 to 200, and then 200 to 100. So we're back to where we started. So 100 to 100, there wasn't really any return on that. Now, the way that Dave Ramsey is calculating the return for the S&P 500 is like this in this example. Okay, we take 100% return the first year that I gave you. Then we add on the return the second year, which is negative 50. So 100 plus negative 50 gives us 50. And then we divide that by 2 because there's 2 years. Well, the average return is 25%. And that math isn't wrong. But you're looking at that and saying, I didn't get 20% return on my investment. I got nothing on my investment. I started with 100 and I ended with 100. So that's the method that he used when he's talking about 12%, and it's called the arithmetic rate of return. But what you really care about, and not to get too technical, is the annualized rate of return, or the geometric calculation for rate of return. When he's talking about 12%, sure, it makes sense when you calculate things that way, but if you've ever run a projection of getting 10% on your money versus 12%, maybe it doesn't seem like a lot year to year, but it has a huge disparity in final outcomes. So within this baby step number 4 and talking about the returns you can get, I do like his approach, but the method used to calculate rates of return is misleading and can actually lead to bad outcomes if people think they can end up saving less because they overproject the returns they'll be getting on their money. Baby step number 5 is to save for your children's education. Now, I like this, and the reason I like this is because so often I see people save for kids' education before saving for their own retirement. And what they end up doing is putting themselves in a very stressful situation where they saved all this money for kids' education, and then they're really in a bad place or a tough place for their own retirement. And if they're not careful, yes, they sent their kids to college and paid for education, but they might have to go back to their kids in the future to ask for help for retirement or ask for help for their own living expense needs. So I always like to make sure people have their own future squared away, their own retirement squared away before starting to save or put money into college funds for children, because if you don't do that, it may end up backfiring on you, and the last thing that you want to do in retirement is be a burden on your children. So sometimes that means prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your retirement, and then doing what you can for college, but don't get those mixed up, otherwise it could lead to a bad situation. Baby step number 6 is pay off your home early. Today, that's kind of a tough sell, depending on your situation. So interest rates have really spiked dramatically over the last several months, where several months ago, you could get a mortgage for 3%. Today, there's mortgages at 7% interest. So if you have one of those mortgages at 7%, yeah, I'm probably inclined to say pay that down before looking to invest. At least there's much more of an impetus to do so. But let's assume that you're someone with, say, $200,000 left on a mortgage at 3%. And you somehow come into $200,000. And the question is, should I pay off the mortgage or should I invest? Well, there are now CDs and short-term investments that are yielding more than 3%. They're at about 4% as of this recording. So just on paper, the arbitrage you could get between do you pay off your mortgage and essentially guarantee yourself a 3% rate of return, or do you get a CD yielding 4% and take advantage of that spread there? And then when the CD matures, if there's another CD yielding that much or more, as long as it's more than your mortgage, keep rolling it over. And if ever interest rates drop, then you have a larger amount that you can use to pay off your mortgage all at once. So it's kind of one of those weird situations where what we're seeing does not happen frequently at all. This is a very rare occurrence where many people have a mortgage rate that's lower than what they could get on a guaranteed return on investment with a CD or short-term government bond. So, does it make sense to pay off your mortgage early? This is another thing that's not always a financial question. What's going to bring you more peace of mind? Paying off a mortgage feels really good. People throw parties for it. People celebrate for it. Getting another 1, 2, 3% rate of return on your investment because you could have done better investing, you're probably not celebrating that. So while it looks better on paper to invest, always come back to what's going to improve quality of life. Understand what your plan needs and understand where dollars are best utilized. But if you're already having an emergency fund built up, if you already have your debts paid off, if you're saving for retirement and you still have extra money, it might feel pretty darn good just to pay off that mortgage and then continuing on with your investments from there. And then finally, Dave Ramsey's baby step number 7 is build wealth and give. And I am absolutely on board with this. One thing Dave Ramsey says all the time is live like no one else so that one day you can live like no one else. Apply the discipline, apply the baby steps, go through the tough things early on, because what that leads to is freedom. It leads to building wealth. It leads to the ability to be generous and to live and to have amazing experiences, but it takes getting your finances right up front. So I'm absolutely on board with this. And my favorite thing is I see it all the time with clients. And I can't tell you how fun it is to see clients who are living like no one else because they first lived like no one else. I was just talking to a client the other day, and his name is David. And what David's done, David and his wife, they've been diligent. They've saved for retirement. They've paid off their home. They've saved money for college. They've lived like no one else. And they're now in this position where they can live like no one else. And he had been driving an old car for a very long time. And again, they've always lived within their means. And I got a text the other day of a picture of his new Rivian. And not only that, but I know that David has 2 really sharp, motivated kids who are going to do wonderful things. And he and his wife are in a great position to send them to whatever college they want to go to. Not only that, but David and his wife, they're in a position to retire early if they want to retire early. So they're now getting to see the fruits of their labor. And it's not because they just came into a whole bunch of money. It's not even because they've had incredibly high incomes over the course of their life. But they applied these baby steps. They applied the framework of paying off debt, saving, investing first, doing the things that are difficult to do, that require discipline, that require deferred gratification. But now they're in a position where they've got freedom. They have choices. They have options. They can now spend on things that they never would have dreamed of spending on because they've done all the hard work up front. And on top of all this, we're able to talk about fun giving strategies because they have the means of being incredibly generous with the resources they have. So what I love here is this is the perfect embodiment of what Dave Ramsey talks about. Are his baby steps perfect? No, they don't need to be perfect. It's a general framework that not everyone's going to apply in the same exact way. But the baby steps work. They're effective. They allow people to get to the other side where they have freedom, they have options, they've built wealth to be able to live fully, to be generous, and to live like nobody else. So at the end of the day, Dave Ramsey's baby steps, they provide a framework and they provide direction. Are there things that should be customized to you? Absolutely. There's so much in here that's going to be depending on your specific situation or your specific preferences. But when followed, this is a wonderful framework for many people to build wealth and live an incredible life after doing so. Now, these baby steps are designed to be a very basic framework, regardless of where you are in life, to be able to apply it and go in the direction of your goals. If you're thinking about retirement specifically and thinking, what should I be saving and how much do I need to save to get there? Well, be sure to check out this video above where I walk through just that. Once again, I'm James Conole, founder of Root Financial, and if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients at Root Financial get the most out of life with their money, be sure to visit us at www.rootfinancialpartners.com.